specialist at MZN, and today's webinar will be taken by Hande, our senior consultant. Just want to say a big hello and thank you already for those who are dropping a line into the comments where you're from and the weather, making us jealous. Today's discussion will be about getting your funding strategy right. Some housekeeping, the slides and recording will be shared with you after the webinar via email. Please reach out to us at hello@mzninternational.com if you do not receive those materials. And we want to give plenty of time for questions at the end, so please leave your questions in the Q&A chat box and we'll get to those at the end. Okay, handing over to you, Hande.
Once again, good afternoon, or depending on the different time zones we have here, have a lovely day. Just a little bit about MZN International, what we do, who we are. We are a social enterprise working with NGOs to help them be better funded, operate better, and deploy smarter strategies. And one way or another, it always comes down to funding strategies, fundraising, donor engagement, and the trend setting. As Ellie introduced me, I'm a consultant with MZN, and I have a more than 15 years background in international development, with a focus on project management, business development, and donor-related work. And today we will try to keep it as brief and concise as possible to give some, talk about some tips and tricks with regards to getting your funding strategy in place. When we are talking about our funding strategy, one of the key criteria is to understand our organization fully, to know our strengths, weaknesses, and or what is on offer by our organization. As one of the NGO CEOs who attended our sprint workshops last year had said, it needs to be the funding strategy needs to be based on the four pillars, like the innovation of the innovation offered by the organization, the operational efficiency, program impact and results, as well as donor service and targeting. So each and every NGO is in fact unique in the services it provides and the value drivers it has, and therefore needs to base its funding strategy highly relevant to its existing values. In understanding our funding strategy and getting it right, we focus on three critical steps. The first step is to understand what we have, what our organization has on the table to offer. And then in the next step, we take a look around. What kind of funding do we need? Which programs need funding? And what is the type of funding we require? And then once we have the answers to these two questions, we turn around and say, okay, how do we get started? That is the point when we feel ready to take action. With regards to step one of the things we need to understand is we need to have a goal. Every journey starts with a goal, a target. And our BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, should be a game changer for us as well as the sector we are working and the area we are providing services in. It will probably seem almost too far away to reach. It will probably seem in a way that we are not accustomed to operate in, and it should be a bit scary. But on the other hand, it should be a goal that unites the team members in the organization. So let's say we have this goal. Analyze what our organization has, what is the available resources, what is the current structure we are working with, and then ask ourselves where we lack the funding. Um, it's also helpful to, when we are looking in, to assess what type of funding applications our organization is successful with. I'm not talking about the usual suspects, the donors we keep working year in and year out. But when we are writing proposals to different types of donors, to different types of organizations, what kind of applications seem to be more successful for our organization? This question can also be translated to assess where do we fail. Funding and fundraising in some organizations go hand in hand, and in some organizations they are completely separate departments. But it is important to understand the capacities our organization has with regards to funding and fundraising, how they complement one another, as well as how far we have come and what's the road ahead, what's the potential ahead for them. These will also lay the ground for understanding our organization's strengths and weaknesses when it comes to funding strategies, and the way we we generate income to implement our programs. We have one example here to aid how to understand what we already have. And this is a graph shared by one of our NGO partners on their understanding of their funding mix in 2014 and the expected for the 5-year programs they were running. So, as usual, even when we are writing our proposals or designing our programs, good data and analysis of that data is actually the basis of everything. It's our stepping stone. In the 2014 mix, we realized that this organization depends heavily on FCDO funding. And there is a bit of 22% fundraising campaigns generating income, and then 11% of other funding opportunities. It can be donations, it can be small grants, but when you look at this picture, you see a high dependency on FCDO funding. When we see a graph like this with a high dependency on one type of donor, it rings bells. It rings bells of emergency, bells of alert in our minds, because it kind of implies that this organization does not have a backup plan if FCDO minimizes the funding available, or FCDO changes its policies or funding trends. Then, because of the high dependency, which is more than 50% in this case, this organization will have quite a lot of trouble to sustain its programs, its projects, and will really have a feasibility issue. So the plan for the next 5 years becomes a more weighted balance with a less dependence on a major donor. You can see that how the dependence on FCDO funding is expected to decrease almost halfway to 39%. And they introduced a new donor to their organization, here given as the EU. They still generate less than 20% through fundraising campaigns, and they still have other smaller donors or funding options to step in when required. But this change from highly dependent to increasing the options is helpful to the organization in having a say in how it implements its programs as well.
Hande, we've just had some great questions come in asking, first of all, from Lindsay, can you please clarify what you mean by funding versus fundraising? I believe it was in 2 slides ago.
Yes, of course. Well, the usual difference between funding and fundraising is we refer to funding mainly towards proposal development, bidding, tenders, and contracts. So there is a donor or a funding organization, and there is a terms of reference or a guidance, and we prepare a project, we prepare a proposal to fit within those guidelines. However, and this in turn goes towards restricted funding. On the other hand, with fundraising, the aim is to generate either more unrestricted funding or programs or project implementations where your organization has the upper hand in creating the scope and managing the scope. And the timeline, the budgeting is your creation rather than a given in the funding program.
Okay. And yeah, Pedro's asked you to clarify. So you've mentioned funding and fundraising, that these can come from 2 separate departments.
As in some organizations, they are departmentalized, and in some organizations, they work, they go hand in hand. Personal opinion, what works best is the mixture, because sometimes your regular donor organization, for example, a government agency which you share proposals and get receive funding from, can also be a fundraising partner for you as well. They can be open to commercial contracts or private partnerships where additional funding streams can be available to your organization.
Okay. And last one is Kaylee has asked you to clarify. So you've mentioned that the funding strategy needs to be built on NGO value drivers, and you listed 4 drivers: program impact and results, operational efficiency, and innovation. And can you please repeat the 4th value driver?
Yes, of course. If we go back a little bit, just a second. Here we are. So the first one was program impact and results, and operational efficiency. I think that was the one that was missed out. Yeah. Innovation, and donor service and targeting. So donor service and targeting can also be translated as the services you are providing for your beneficiaries, for your stakeholders as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll let you now get back to presenting.
Yeah, please do step in. Yeah, so moving into the second step of how to improve the fundraising or funding, considering that we have looked inside our organization and done our internal assessment, then the next step is to look around our organization around our sector of programs and implementation. The first question we need to ask here is about our donor audience. So terminology can sometimes be quite restrictive. And when we talk about donor audience, we also need to think about other potentials. So it can be private partnerships or partnership contracts and strategic partnerships with government donors who do not want to give away grants but want to give away different types of contracts. So the word donor here is actually more general in terms of the other counterpart with the available funding. And the second question here is who we share an audience with. So, looking at other like-minded NGOs or profit or non-profit organizations like research institutes, universities, and if we are working in the same field of expertise, then is it possible to work together with them? Can we partner with them? Can we create consortiums to make sure our proposal or our projects are seen stronger? And because we know our projects and we know our programs the best, then we can also understand what kind of funding would be ideal for our existing or prospective programs, and how much we actually need. So this is a thing about budgeting. And unfortunately, there's a high tendency for NGOs to prepare their budgets based on the minimum and maximum limits given in the terms of reference or the guidance documents designed by the different donors. The key disadvantage in this is NGOs end up having to adapt, providing the same quality of service despite shrinking budgets. And well, we would all agree that that's not very fair. So ideal budgeting would help us clearly see the amount of funds we need to raise for a sustainable, efficient, and effective implementation. And then kind of lining in with our strengths, what are the key competitive factors our organization has? What makes us stand out among other like-minded organizations, other competitors, so to say? What makes our organization unique in the way it delivers its services? So what is our added value? We need to have this clearly identified. And in line with understanding what kind of funding do we really need or we are interested in, here is a smiley chart. So we try to gather here different types of funding, from government grants to fundraising campaigns and foundation grants. And grading is very much dependent on flexibility as well as the level of effort required in both securing the funding and during the implementation. Also, the possibility of sustainability. Would it be possible to work with this donor or with this funding organization more than once in a repeated fashion? When it comes to flexibility of fund usage, government grants are kind of the worst because they are very restricted in terms of scope, in terms of budget, and in terms of the time you have in order to implement the promised activities and achieve the results. On the other hand, when you are working with service contracts, or when you have access to unrestricted funding, where you can devise the scope and you decide as the organization on how to manage that income, the flexibility of fund usage increases towards a proper Smiley. There's also the risk appetite, which comes into question, whether you will be able to recover your costs. In most cases, yes, because we prepare the budgets in line with the guidelines, or in line with the market conditions. But the more unrestricted income, or the more income that helps us to implement the way we design things, then it is easier, both in terms of managing that funding, and keeping both your organization and the financial resources happy. Oops, sorry, clicked too much. One of the findings of our studies, as we work with numerous NGOs around the world, is NGOs who receive more than 70% of their funding from a single type of donor have a 75% likelihood of experiencing financial distress. I would like to refer to the earlier graphs we shared. When there's a high dependence on one single donor, and that donor changes its strategy, or cuts back on the amount of funding it usually gives, then at a moment's notice, your organization can find itself in a serious financial trouble. This likelihood of financial distress drops to around 25% when none of those income sources represents more than 50% of the total income. So when you have a diversity in terms of your sources of income, then your balance with regards to financial stability is better balanced. In this case, I would like to refer to our in-person classroom trainings for NGOs. They're back. And we have just a course for this in line with designing and thinking innovatively when it comes to designing your funding strategy.
Going back quickly to your wonderful smiley face graph, we have a question from Catherine specific to the service contract. So she said that in their personal experience, service contracts tend to be quite restrictive and the level of effort can be quite high. So she's interested to know why these factors have been rated with a green smiley face.
Service contracts go two ways, really. The reason they are given, the positive smileys on this one is when you have the upper hand to design the scope and design the budgets of these. So instead of waiting for the terms of reference, or instead of being reactive to issued contracts, to be proactive and engaging with these organizations and setting the stage instead of just applying to an issued contract.
Okay, great. And another question from Charity. What is IGA?
Intergovernmental agencies. Sorry. Yeah, we should remember to make them clearer next time. Ellie, that is a note for ourselves.
Yes. Noted.
Shall I get back?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. We have looked in our organization, we have looked around to understand our environment, the environment we work in, and then the third step is to look ahead. And that is when we can finally take actions. So conduct a workshop internally to make a list of the right donors for the profile of your organization. Score them against likelihood. Think of it like a donor map, and understand the likelihood of success, and how much work and how much effort you would need to either apply to them, to engage directly with them, or track them, trace them, and make sure your organization appears on their agenda. We have already talked about strengths and weaknesses, but we also have to bear in mind the opportunities and threats. So combine them into a full SWOT that fully assesses where your organization is, where you want it to be heading, and how you can optimize those opportunities and eliminate the threats, how you can minimize those threats. Another item we need to think about is investing time, investing resources, and also accepting the fact that this is not a short ride. This is a long-term investment, long-term engagement, and you are not going to get results in, 2 weeks. It's a long-term investment. It's a change of mindset. If you feel you are stuck with these questions and identifying the answers, we are here to help. We can always step in to run a sprint, which means we do not find the answers for you. We just help you find them together. And talking about the time and investment it takes, we can say that at the minimum, this process of looking in, looking around, and looking ahead takes around 5 months, because you need to do a thorough examination of your organization. You need to understand your current stakeholders, your preferred stakeholders, who you would like to partner with, and then take action about it. Taking action is sometimes through attending conferences, attending seminars where you can network in person. It is sometimes by signing up to and joining different working groups, so you can familiarize yourself with different counterparts. Or it can be running a marketing strategy campaign and reaching out to directly to the people who you think are the key of accessing partnerships in different organizations. Just a bit more about MZ10 sprints, where we kind of lockdown sessions to solve problems in a short time. We do these by getting all the related people together in one room and facilitating discussion, facilitating thought-provoking conversations. It's 1 or maximum 3-day sessions, and the idea is, we don't let you out of the room until there's a result. And as previously said, MZ10 is a social enterprise. These activities, these sprints, are free of charge, where we just charge the cost of organizing the event. Yeah, I think we can move on to the questions.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, we have a few. So the first one is going back again to the smiley face graph.
Mhm.
Kaylee is saying she is interested in the longevity and the sustainability of government grants and why it was given a sad face. In her experience, multi-million, multi-year government grants can actually offer the opportunity to design programs that achieve long-lasting results and bring programs to scale. So she's curious as to why these have received the sad face.
Especially in the recent years, the amount of funding through government grants has been declining. We've seen this with UK and DFID, and we are seeing it a little bit with USAID. The USAID and the EU being the major donors, even they are, cutting down on budgets, and the trend is moving towards instead of giving out grants, they want to design contracts more in a concept of pay as you go. So they want everyone involved to take the risks, to share the risk of implementing high value projects. Therefore, yes, a few years ago we could have made it a green smiley face, but unfortunately, as the trends are changing and the amounts are declining, it is quite fast moving towards a red face.
Great. And I think this next question from Tadas is perhaps following on from that. So they've asked, how is your interpretation and actions of the smiley graph, where the smiles are fewer in the case of government and foundation grants? I think you've just answered that.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, super. So next one from Catherine is, do you have a template that you would recommend for a fundraising strategy?
Well, we do have a couple of templates both for funding and fundraising. However, it would be best to tailor make it depending on your activities, your programs, and the audience you wanted to speak to. So we can talk about it later if you wish.
Yeah, great. Catherine, so if you would like to reach out to us at hello@mzninternational.com, we can continue that discussion. From Matthew, question is, what are the main KPIs of a successful fundraising and fundraising strategy?
Well, that's a nice one. In terms of KPIs, of course, the key measure is to raise the required funds for your organization. But then there's also the quality of the engagement you do with the different resources. So the long-term sustainability and the impact that you are going to create with these resources are also need to be in among your KPIs, and it's a like multi-layered approach to where you get the funding from, how sustainable it is going to be, what are the results you are going to achieve, and also its alignment with your strategies and priorities as well.
Great. Before I read out the next questions, Okello has asked if you can kindly go back to the slide that was titled Look Ahead. I think
Just a second. This one? I think so.
I believe so. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Julia is saying our experience with foundation grants are that they are very flexible and actually sustainable, as foundations tend to invest in long-term relations with their guarantees, unlike governments.
Yes, the relationship building with foundations, even sometimes it takes, longer than you would like. Once that happens and both sides are in a good working relationship, it continues, and it continues in a fashion where you find yourself being less monitored. So you are at more ease with how you would like to implement and have more flexibility when you run into challenges. Um, this is not always the case with more institutional grants. So yeah, different type of donors have their advantages and disadvantages when it comes to the hard work you put in to get the funding, and also the collaboration during implementation and reporting.
Great. Kaylee's asking, is there an ideal sorry, maybe I'm echoing. Do you mind quickly muting yourself, Hande, while I read out this question?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, super. The echoing is gone. So Kaylee has said, is there an ideal funding pie broken down by government funding, private foundation, major philanthropic and individual private donations that you would recommend?
The short answer is no. There is not the perfect pie, which gives the an indication of how to divide, because this also depends on one, your habits of funding and fundraising, and two, your needs for implementation. But however, the general idea still counts, not leaning too much towards one single donor or one single type of funding. So one of the things Chris usually says in the webinars is to have a goal of adding 5 donors to your list every year. So increase by 5 every year, introduce new donors to your organization, because not every donor is going to stay with you for life. So at the end of the day, by increasing the variety, you also end up having the option of picking and choosing between your donors.
Super. And Kaylee's followed with an additional question. Can you share more about the tangible results you would achieve in a sprint? And could this be helping organizations to establish fundraising strategies?
Yes, sure. Quick examples from some of the sprints we have run. One of them was about setting a new funding unit within an organization, and the decision makers did not know how to empower the team members on this, and did not know how to structure it within their own organization, and they were holding endless meetings with unfortunately not reaching any solutions. And the 2-day sprint we organized for them helped them to understand how their organization functions, where the weaknesses are, and how to improve those weaknesses by setting up a business development unit that would carry out the funding and fundraising tasks for the organization. And even at the end of the day, it turned out as a key service for them, which they ended up providing to their member organizations as well. So it's not us telling you how to do things, but through our facilitations and example setting and benchmarking examples, your organization, your decision making, paving the way for forward. Because as we always say, the key and the answers to existing or prospective problems already lie within your organization. It's just an outside perspective can show you how to switch where you are looking from.
Great. And two final questions. So one from Amos. When small INGOs are developing a strategy, what are the key challenges expected?
One of the key challenges is when not all 100% of funding comes from the donor organization. So one, you may either have to mix and match your funding, and or you may have to match from your own financial resources. So especially for new NGOs or for small NGOs, the limited access to finance can be a bit problematic in starting off. Another issue may sometimes be especially for new organizations, not having the chance to show your references. In such cases, we recommend partnering up with other organizations, working with them so that you also get those references, and in a couple of years you can become the lead applicant in opportunities.
Super. And the final question from Donna is, any ideas on fundraising for a social enterprise?
Fundraising for a social enterprise, that would be us. Ellie, do you have any answers on this?
I don't.
Well, working as a social enterprise, which focuses mainly working to benefit NGOs. We also work with private organizations to raise funds and to direct them towards the NGOs we work with. So it's a partnership game that we need to design and to follow. And one of the keys in this is relationship building, networking, and staying on our target audience's agendas. I hope that's been helpful.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's all the questions as well.
Lovely. And we are just about on time.
Great. And thank you very much for all of the comments. We've had some compliments on the presentation, Hande, and also from myself. Thank you very much for taking this.